Okay, 3, 2, 1. Yep, eye shaft. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and you join me here at Response Motors for the GT3 build. Now, up until now, we've been focused on the exterior of the car, mostly removing components in the front, but now we're gonna move into the inside of the car. So we're gonna pull off that dash, get to everything behind that's on the firewall so that we can eventually cut off the front end of this car. So let's get started by pulling off those seats. First thing we got to do is remove our custom GT3 bucket seats. And in order to do that, there are 4 bolts. There's 2 in the front underneath here. Porsche makes it pretty easy to access. There's a seatbelt bolt on the side, and then the receptacle, and then there's going to be some connectors underneath for the airbag and the seatbelt, and that's it. So let's get to it. All right, as you guys can see, after pulling the seats, it's pretty dirty in here, and I gotta say too, it stinks. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this a quick vacuum before we pull off the steering wheel and start removing the dash. First things first, we got to remove the airbag, and in order to do that, there's actually 2 pins. There's one on each side of the wheel, so you can see there's a little hole here, and there's one on the other side. And so we've got our trusty tool, which we're going to insert in here and pop it off. So let's do that. All right, guys. So as I was pulling these off, notice that they're pretty melted, and that's why I was having, you can probably see from the video, I was really struggling to get these out, because when the airbag goes off, which has clearly been deployed here, there's actually an explosive charge in here that ignites, and you can see this is all charred and black from heating up, so it melted the connectors in here, which is pretty common, and it was really getting hard to take these out, and this is actually seized, so I ended up just snipping them off, which is okay because I'm going to get a new connector. There's actually a new harness that goes all the way into the back and the clock spring. So now, up next, we're going to pull off the steering wheel, and we got to undo this bolt, and then we'll be able to pull the whole wheel off. So let's get to it. Now that we removed the steering wheel, I'm going to go ahead and pull out the center console, mostly because it's just in the way, honestly, and I don't want to damage it, even though it's a little dirty. It's actually in pretty good condition. And the carpet's going to have to come out to start pulling out the front because there's fasteners, everything underneath. We're going to have to pull out the center console anyway. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that. There's a couple fasteners under here, the center section. We're going to pull up some trim pieces, get some more fasteners under here, and then this whole piece should just come out. So let's get to it. Center console is out. Honestly, it wasn't too bad. The hardest thing was pulling off the radio connectors. So all of this is your media interface, and that was a bit of a bear because they've got these small little plugs, but a small flathead screwdriver is your friend. Now that the center console's removed, I'm gonna go ahead and start undoing these big bolts. So this bracket here holds in the dash. So this dashboard, I'm gonna try, fingers crossed, to actually remove it as one piece. This is how they assemble it at Porsche, so in theory, we should be able to pull it out. There's a couple bolts under here. There's 2 bolts on each side holding it in, and then in the back on the firewall, which I'll show you in a minute, there are bolts on the outside. So that's how Porsche assembles it. So let's see if we can get this thing out in one go. So we're back outside the car because I wanted to show everyone a few things we need to do before removing the dash. First, we're going to have to disconnect the AC lines. So these actually go into the heater and AC core inside the dash. So we'll disconnect these. There's just a single screw here. And then also there's the water pipe. So this is how you get your heat. These actually come from hot water from the engine and go into a core in there. So we'll disconnect this guy, and that should be it as far as external lines. And then there's this bolt, and then there's that bolt there. Fingers crossed that that's going to be it, as well as the inside bolts. And we're going to try to pull it out. So let's see how this goes. It is how they do it at Porsche in the factory. They don't disassemble the dash. So hopefully we can get away with this. And while I'm out here, I'll show you a little behind the scenes. It's very hard to get lighting inside the car to shoot. I tried doing some shots with just normal garage lighting, but found that didn't work. So we got some studio lights on here to get you a much better view inside the car as we're working here. So back inside, and let's get removing that dash. I wanted to provide a little bit of context about getting these rubber hoses off because they were a total bear. So you're gonna see me use a hose clamp compressor here. This tool is super vital to getting hose clamps off, especially factory hose clamps, which are these metal snap rings. So this tool actually squeezes that hose clamp down and it creates an indent that'll let you keep the hose clamp separated so you don't have to keep squeezing it while you're pulling off the pipe. Very vital to getting these things off. The problem is these hoses were only about 6 inches long, and it didn't provide a lot of meat to grab, and they were going between 2 metal receptacles, so there really was no room in here. So I'm trying desperately with a variety of tools, plastic ones to start, because I didn't want to scratch that hose bar, because if you do that, you'll get leaks. I mean, this went on for a good hour, to be honest, trying to get these things off. So finally, you'll see here, we're actually using another valve spring tool. This is a circular plier, and it's really cool because you can wrap it around the hose and without hurting that metal hose bar, and you can shove down on that pipe and get it off. So we ended up doing this, and you're gonna see Nick come in here and help me out. He's one of our technicians because he's got a lot of experience removing old rubber hoses. So I'll spare you the lengthy montage of this hose removal, but just rest assured, it was a beast. It took quite a while, so now I'll let you get back to the action. All right, we got the dash pretty much out, and what I did is put a moving blanket down, because when this thing comes out, it's not light, so it's probably gonna need to rest somewhere for a bit. But then we realized that we're not actually gonna be able to get it out of the car because it's sitting on the lift, and we can only open the door to about there. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna pull off the door first, which isn't too bad. There's actually a bolt here, and then another bolt down here, and there's a connector, which you've already undone inside. They're gonna lift the door out and put it on this cart. So that'll provide us access to then get the dash out. So let's go. All right, we got the doors off, and take a quick look around. A lot more access in the car, and it looks much more like a project car now. So what we're gonna try to do is pull the dash straight out, and then rest it down and see if we can't get it out of the door and put it on a cart. So we're gonna give it a shot. All right, dash is out. So big moment here. That took not as much work as I thought. It's actually pretty straightforward. And of course, now that we have the dash out, we can see the infamous pyro fuse. So this is the fuse that blows. You can see the yellow connector here, which means it's part of the safety system. So the SRS system, and you'll see those yellow connectors kind of all over the car here. So this one goes to the control module, which is the airbag control module, which I removed here. And these yellow connectors go under the seat. So these connect to the airbags in the seats. So this is part of the safety system. When the airbags go off, this fuse pops. So one thing to note is this large power cable here. This guy is actually the power cable that goes back to the starter motor. So when you turn on the ignition, this is the main power bracket. So this has 12 volts coming from the battery, and this fuse pops, so it keeps this cable, which again goes to the starter motor, from energizing, which is why when you click on the key, you hear that click. That's the starter solenoid engaging, but it won't let the starter motor turn over. So we have to replace this fuse in order to power this cable and get that motor going. That's going to be it for today, everyone. We had a lot of progress on the GT3. Pulled out that center console, we took off those doors, we removed a couple more things from the front end, and of course, we pulled out that dash. We actually got the whole dash out in one piece, which was a big achievement. We took a look at that pyro fuse. Now it's super easy to get to. So basically, next up, we're gonna finish removing stuff from the firewall. We're gonna pull out that carpet, and then we're gonna start prepping this front end for removal. So if you haven't done so already, push that subscribe button, turn on notifications, because we've got a lot of great content coming up.